Welcome to CAPITALISE Education's 5-minute professional learning bite to support educators across the world during uncertain times. Remember, at CAPITALISE Education, we believe that educators achieve more together than they do alone. The focus of today's 5-minute bite is supporting students on the autism spectrum through Universal Design for Learning, with a focus on receptive language difficulties. I love this quote. Once you have met one child on the autism spectrum, you have met one child on the autism spectrum. That's because every student on the spectrum is so different. For this reason, one pedagogical approach won't work. Teachers need a diverse range of strategies in their tool shed. Students on the autism spectrum often demonstrate challenges in the areas of social communication and repetitive behaviors and restricted interests. Today, we are going to focus on the area of communication. For some students on the autism spectrum, they might be nonverbal. For other students, they might have language and may even talk like a little professor, but this can hide their challenges in relation to receptive language, the way they understand language, or their challenges with expressive language, the way that they express themselves. Let's contextualize these characteristics within a hypothetical student. For example, a student on the autism spectrum might have difficulties with receptive language. Beth Saggers from the Queensland University of Technology states that every person on the autism spectrum is unique and their needs will be reflected differently. Whilst the characteristics of students on the autism spectrum may be similar, it's important to delve deeper into the functional impact so that we can determine how we can support students. The Australian federal government defines functional impact as the impact on curriculum access and participation, communication, mobility, personal care, and social participation. So it's the impact that the characteristics of autism have whilst a student is at school. Let's have a look at the functional impact for our hypothetical student. So our student has difficulties with receptive language. So in the classroom, the student struggles to understand the terminology used in geography. So what can we do to support this student in our classrooms? I love this quote from Epstein. No tool is omnicompetent. There is no such thing as a master key that will unlock all doors. Rather than wielding a single tool, generalists have managed to collect and protect an entire tool shed, and they show the power of range in a hyper-specialized world. As an educator, do you have a range of pedagogical strategies in your tool shed? The Universal Design Learning Framework from CAST provides us with a range of tools that we can incorporate in our tool shed to support students with disability and diverse learning needs. So let's go back to our hypothetical student with receptive language difficulties who struggles to understand the terminology used in geography. If we look at the Universal Design for Learning framework, there are 2 checkpoints that could help us out here. We could clarify the vocabulary and symbols for our student, and we could illustrate through multiple media. Now let's have a look at how we could do this. What could this look like within a classroom? Before we can start talking about a specific pedagogical strategy linked to the Universal Design for Learning framework, we need to set this within a context. The context being the approved curriculum or the Australian curriculum for geography. Let's imagine our hypothetical student is year 8 and the teacher needs to teach different types of landscapes and their distinctive landform features. As a classroom teacher, I've decided to use this simple text with my students, but I have a student on the autism spectrum with receptive language difficulties, so I know they find it challenging to understand what they are reading in geography. So what could I do? Whilst reading aloud the text to my students, I highlight any of the challenging words that we come across. The first word we come across in this text that would be challenging for my students is the word plateaus. So we would highlight that one color. As we continue to read the text aloud together, we continue to highlight words that could be challenging. The next word that could be challenging to understand for my student might be planes. So I highlight that a different color. In the last sentence, we come across one more word that could be challenging for my students to understand, the word mountain. So we highlight this a third color. Now that we've highlighted all of the challenging words in the text, we go back to the first challenging word. The Universal Design for Learning framework suggests that one way that I can help clarify this terminology is to use images with my students, because images can clarify for a student what a term means and what it doesn't mean. I could then bring up Google Images with my students and type in the word plateaus, and we could look at the images that come up. Computer visualization science suggests that the more images you use, the more it is easier to clarify understanding, and using different types of images, not just photos, but cartoons and drawn pictures. So we could look together with my class at what images of plateaus mean so that we can come up with our own definition. After looking at the images, we can come up with three main characteristics of a plateau. It has steep edges, it has a flat top, and it has lowland around. We go back to our original text to see if there's any further information we need to include so that we can continue to clarify our understanding of what a plateau is. I can see here the word plains means flat areas, so we need to highlight that for our students. Together, the class and I go back to our three characteristics and we add the word plain wherever it has flat, so that the students understand the word plain and flat mean the same thing. Together, the class and I go back to our original text, see if there's any further challenging terms that would be clarified by looking at Google Images. There is one more term in that text, the word mountain, so we could add the word mountain to Google Images and see what we can find. Together as a class, I add the word mountain into Google Images, and together we look at the images that we see, not just photos, but photos, cartoons, pictures, to develop our understanding. And as a class, we come up with some key defining features of a mountain. Together, as a class, we come up with two defining features. It has steep edges and a point at the top. With the class, we go back to the original text to see if there's any clarifying language that we could be used to further flesh out our characteristics of a mountain. I can see the word peak is for a sharp top. Together, as a class, we add the word peak to the point at the top so we can further develop our students' understanding of the characteristics of a mountain. Using the information we've collected from Google Images, our class understanding, and what we read in the original text, we start developing our own visual word wall or picture glossary. Using the three characteristics the students develop by looking at Google Images, we collaboratively develop a class definition of a plateau, a landscape with steep walls, a flat top known as a plain, and surrounded by low plains. To support our student with receptive language challenges, we also include images of what a plateau is. To support my student, I also include images of what a plateau isn't, so that that idea of what it is and what it isn't can help my student clarify their understanding of the term plateau. Going back to our original text, I can see there are two other terms that could be added to our visual word wall or our visual glossary, the terms plains and mountain. As a class, we continue to flesh out our visual word wall or visual glossary by adding the term plain and mountain, collaboratively developing our class definition, adding images of what a plane is and isn't, and what a mountain is and isn't. That is our 5-minute learning bite for today, looking at how we can support a student on the autism spectrum with challenges with receptive language through the Universal Design for Learning framework. Just remember, if you want to go quickly, go alone, but if you want to go far and provide effective educational support for your students, go together. Until next time, have a great day.